Hey, it's MykonosFan. I'm here with this, I guess, like discussion kind of video I wanted to do. As you can tell by the title, it's about Sonic Adventure 3, which is like a very tired topic in the Sonic fan base, and if you're not like hardcore into Sonic, this video is probably not really going to matter to you, so just a heads up on that. It mainly just comes from an interview that came out with Takashi Iizuka. He's I forget his exact title anymore. I think he's like executive producer at Sonic Team or something, or you know, when there's an interview about Sonic, he's generally the guy giving it. You know, I'm not sure how much exact control he has over the Sonic brand, but he's a pretty major player, you know, at the very least. So this interview came out, and it's just like, I don't even want like a Sonic Adventure 3 that badly. Like, SA1 was my first game. Like, that was, you know, that era was like my Sonic. But, you know, I'm not like dying and frothing at the mouth for one, and I'm generally open to see whatever the series wants to do and follow it wherever it wants to go. You know, not necessarily supporting it along the way, but I'll at least see what's going on, you know, as it advances. And, you know, I guess I'll just read some of the quotes. You know, I forget. I'm not sure if this stemmed from Polygon or if Polygon picked it up from somewhere. This kind of hit a few different sites, and this is just off the cuff, but, you know, but I'll just read some quotes out just to set this up. One of his quotes is, "I hear people saying that they want Adventure 3, but the path that we're on and there's like a pause, Adventure 3, what fans want that to be, might not be an advancement of the series." It says Iizuka told Polygon, so Polygon must be the source. And this is happening over at Tokyo Game Show. "So I don't want to do an Adventure 3 and step the franchise back just to give the fans what they want." And another quote here. "From the developer standpoint, every Sonic game that we're making is taking new steps and advances, furthering the game in a new direction, and that's dictated where the Sonic series has been going." And seems like the final quote here. "If we can get the gameplay to evoke and get to a place where Adventure 3 makes sense, then you might see an Adventure 3 come out. But we don't want to take the entire series back to where it was just to make people happy. We want to advance the idea of what a Sonic game is." And if you take all that at face value, that's great for a developer to say. It's like, we don't want to regress all the advancements and things we've done, you know, purely to make fans happy. You know, we don't want to compromise our vision of what a Sonic game is and what we've been building on for years and years with more recent titles. Like, if you don't think too deeply into everything he just said, fantastic, that's great. When you start thinking about that and comparing it with the recent steps taken in recent times for the series, it, in my eyes, it mostly immediately falls apart. And that's the issue, and that's what I wanted to talk about here today. But I want to open this by saying, you know, I think Iizuka was appointed his kind of general position now in around, it was somewhere in the 2008 to 2010 range, right? Around the time Sonic Colors and Sonic 4 were coming out, you'd see him in interviews all the time, and from then on, he's just kind of been the go-to guy, like I mentioned earlier. Now, from everything, you know, as far as I know, Iizuka is a very nice guy, a very kind man, a very sweet, you know, caring gentleman. From my own interactions with him, to people I've talked to that have worked directly with him, to people that have had their own, you know, experiences with him and stuff, no one has ever offered up any negative word about the man's, you know, character or intentions for the series or anything. Like, from everything I hear, swell guy. And I don't aim to presume that he's just like taking fans for a ride or, you know, intentionally like misleading people. I say all that because Iizuka gives some fucking weird PR. And I don't know if this is just a Japanese Games Press thing. I don't know if it's like weird translation for almost a decade now. I don't know what it is, but he gives really weird PR, and it's not always finalized, right? So if you want SA3 and you're disheartened by this, I'll point to two earlier things that has either been said by Iizuka or Sega Sonic team at official interviews. 1. There would be no Classic Sonic after Generations. Bringing Classic Sonic back for Generations was a one-off thing to celebrate the series' 20th anniversary. They were very adamant about that. And if you look at Sonic Forces, Classic Sonic is in there. So that immediately out the window there. Another one, I don't know if this was direct wording, but it was heavily implied around the time Sonic Lost World released, whether that was up to pre-release or a little after. Iizuka kind of stated that he saw Sonic Generations as the end of an era, and that Lost World moving forward would be a new style of Sonic, or something to that effect. And the main intent there was with regards to the gameplay, because if you know, Sonic Lost World did not follow in the footsteps of Unleashed, Colors, and Generations. It kind of broke off and did its own thing. That point specifically makes this interview very, very weird, because he said, there was the exact quote was, "We don't want to take the entire series back to where it was just to make people happy. We want to advance the idea of what a Sonic game is." Well, Sonic Forces pretty much take things back before Lost World to Sonic Generations just to make people happy. I think it is pretty obvious to see, if you're very up to date on Sonic Forces, that they're doing a lot of things to appeal to a wide array of Sonic fans. And whether that's working for you or not, I'll try and leave that out of this for right now. I think it's almost near impossible to say that this quote works with what is happening with Sonic Forces. And if you look at Sonic Mania and like the general Sonic brand direction, there's a lot of let's go look to the past and do what we were doing before and make people happy by doing so, right? And another issue I have specifically, he wants SA3 to advance the series and push it forward and take new steps and all these things. I'm not sure where Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces are doing so, and I guess this is where I come out with my opinion if you didn't know. I think Sonic Mania was awesome. I think Sonic Forces looks, in terms of level layout, which affects a lot of stuff in a Sonic game for how fun it is, it does not look fun. I really want to like Sonic Forces, and I have my fingers crossed that we're just seeing early stages that are very basic, but I'm not too hopeful, right? But I'm just, I look at the modern Sonic gameplay, and granted, I think we've still seen one solely modern Sonic stage in its entirety, or a good chunk of it. I don't see anything happening there that didn't happen in Unleashed through Generations. He has a double jump back from Colors, that's something Generations didn't have. It looks like a weird little way of, and it looks like it controls a little bit like Lost World, maybe in the 2D sections. I haven't played the game to know, but it just in every way to me, it just looks like a step back from what we've had. I sincerely look at the game. I think there are pluses for it. I cannot find where that is pushing the envelope for the series. And if you look at Classic Sonic, arguably, if you look at some of his physics, it looks a little weirder than Generations. And I'm not one of those guys who says Classic Sonic and Generations has to be one-on-one, an exact replication of the Genesis game's physics. But, I'm not seeing anything there that's like, oh man, yeah, that they're pushing that forward. And from a gameplay design perspective, I'm not seeing what's being pushed forward there. And I hope the final game proves me wrong. And, a lot of this is speculation based on pre-release footage. I haven't played the game, obviously, because it's not out for another 7 weeks at this point. But there's no new tricks to Classic. The custom character, we haven't seen that exact stuff before, so I'll give him credit. That character is not Sonic, but there's some stuff there that's being done that we haven't exactly seen in a Sonic game before, like the electric whip thing for dispatching enemies. And then there's the tag gameplay, and that harkens back to Sonic Heroes, but it's not exactly Sonic Heroes, so it's hey, that's something, right? I can't really say that pushes the series forward in a bold, brand new direction, but it's at least something, right? I'll give credit where credit's due. But you just look at all of that, and it's if this was a drastic jump from, say, SA1 to SA2, or 06 to Unleashed, or even Colors to Generations, or even Generations to Lost World, and I didn't like Lost World, but even then, you can see an attempt to do something new and try a different direction with Sonic, and you could see ideas that maybe weren't executed perfectly, but you could see that they were trying, like the parkour system. Wasn't that great? they were trying, right? In that way, I think Lost World at least pushed the series in a direction. And with Forces, I feel like the only way it's really pushing anything is maybe in the tone and a more return to a more serious 3D Sonic game that takes its plot, more seriously than the last few games did. And that's cool, but that's not really gameplay. You could do a Lost World styled game and do that. You could do an 06 styled game and do that. You could do a Hero styled game and do that. Again, it's pushing the series in a direction. I'm not sure if that really is enough to qualify, being like, we won't do Sonic Adventure 3 because that's a step back, but we will absolutely step back from Lost World to do all this stuff. And that's a decision I even agree with. I think, I would have loved to see them refine the Lost World gameplay and make it better. But hey, we know the boost gameplay stuff works well, and the hope with when we wanted that to go back was that we'd see an advancement of generations, and so far we're just not seeing that. But it just completely bugs me that, I don't know, everything about this is like, we don't want to take the series back for fans, we want to push the series forward, and all this stuff. It sounds great. Then you look at Forces, and it's just not happening. And with Mania, that's not a Sonic Team game, so maybe when he says what he's wanting to do with the series, he's just meaning Sonic Team purely, right? So I don't want to include Mania too much in this, but, that is very much a thing of let's go back to make the fans happy. And that's something Sonic has been doing for quite a while. I just don't see where any of this lines up, and if it hasn't been so many years of weird PR, I'd almost want to say this was a weird translation, but I don't know. And on another level, this is weird to me because the Sonic Adventure games were Iizuka's baby. Those were kind of his, claim to fame, and he did have Shadow and Knight's Journey of Dreams, which people, myself included, weren't really crazy about, but people really love those adventure games, and those were very much, his games. And it's weird to me that I imagine from a conceptual point or even a plot point or something, he'd love to go back and do Sonic Adventure 3, but obviously, something in the gameplay department isn't lining up for them at Sonic Team. And I feel like this was probably just a really prettied up way of saying, we tried it and, we couldn't get a green light, which, Iizuka's spoken before about how he's really wanted to do pet projects and not gotten green lights, like a Knuckles Chaotix 2 or another Knights game. So maybe he pitched an SA3 and it didn't get greenlit, or maybe they were working on a Sonic Adventure 3 and the gameplay was just not shaping up, or they didn't have enough time to retool their engine and physics and everything to get back to that style of game, where Unleashed, the boost gameplay and Lost World gameplay did different things. Lost World was closer, but if they were going back and trying to really closely replicate Adventure's gameplay, I mean, for one, you got to choose SA1 or SA2, but, it's and I imagine a lot of Sonic Team now probably, didn't work on those games, or it's been a very long time, and going back to that is tougher in the 3D space. I imagine there's a lot of what-ifs here. I think your mind can wander, and that's all tinfoil hat speculation. There's no basis for that, but I'm just inferring that from things he said in the past and just how weird this PR is, because it just 2 and 2 don't make 4 here for me. I feel like it's something Sonic Team probably still thinks about. I'm sure they know, and I'm sure Sega Japan knows. The instant they announce that, so much attention is going to be on them. It'd be a great move for the brand in terms of brand awareness and fan excitement, but they're probably so scared to commit because what if it's bad? I mean, if you look at Forces, this is a more serious Sonic game, incorporating some Sonic Adventure elements in a way, Chaos is back, Shadow's a villain again, there's vocal themes and there's vocals during the gameplay, and overall the tone is more serious. I don't think the adventure games ever got to this point, but compared to the last few games, this is quite a dramatic shift back toward the adventure direction, and the reception has been terrible, and I wonder if maybe Sega Japan understands and Sonic Team understand that that is really just the gameplay people aren't feeling, or if maybe they're just gun shy after the reception of Forces being like, God, I mean, we committed to this and no one's liking it. Like, we got to go back to what we were doing even before that and make another happy, colorful game, you know? There's a lot of what ifs here. This is just me venting random things out. I'd love to hear what anyone else thinks. You know, and I'm not saying I'm correct in like any of this. You know, obviously a lot of this is very open to your opinion of like what Forces is doing and all these things and how you think the game looks. Maybe you played it in an event or something. You know, I haven't played Forces, but yeah, this is just me like venting basically, because this interview just made no sense to me, and I feel like it'd be much more valid to say that the series just isn't what it used to be. And while we want to try and make fans happy, we want to make sure that if we do it, we get it right. So SA3 is not in the cards right now, but we don't want to roll it out completely. I feel like that's the way you say it. I feel like you don't say like, oh, you know, we'd have to step back, you know, to please fans and do something like lower than what we're doing, because that's, you know, that's just kind of kicking the balls. It's like, oh yeah, like we're doing something much better than back then, you know. So if you want Adventure 3, sorry. And like, hey, maybe they are doing something better nowadays, but you know, that's just a little extra salt in the wound for people who really love those adventure games and have not quite clicked with the series since then, you know. But anyway, this is just me bitching basically, so I'd be interested to hear what you think in the comments, but I just had to get a lot of this out because none of this has made sense to me. Alright, hey, thanks for watching. Bye. This video was supported by the following patrons on Patreon. Thank you.